All right, so I'm gonna throw a couple of different spouts, but the main spout I'm gonna throw is gonna go onto this teapot body that I've made. I haven't made the lid yet or the handle yet. Preferably, I would do that, but I just need to get this video finished. So I'm gonna make a couple different spouts. This one probably doesn't need to be really big, but we'll just make a couple and see what turns out the best. So I'm gonna throw these off the hump. Sponge is in the other room. All right. So when I think about a spout shape, I want to think about a funnel. It's going to connect at the widest part and then go down to the smaller part. So I'm going to start wider and then throw this narrow. Let me kind of tilt this up a little bit. There we go. So I'm going to open this nice and wide. And with spouts, it's nice to make them wider than they need to be at the bottom, taller than they need to be, just so you can have air for cutting back. What happens with the rim at the top, you don't want to cut that back, because the cut rim's never going to be as nice as a thrown rim. So this is on that scale of throwing smaller objects is harder than bigger objects. So the bottom is right here. To make this conical shape, I'm not using a whole lot of pressure with my inside hand. It's mostly just my hand here on the outside pushing in to try and force that shape. It's getting a little uneven, so I'm going to cut this back. Compress that again. So this is beginning to be kind of a good thickness. It's not very much clay. Maybe it's like a quarter of a pound, if that. So it's already fairly thin, but obviously this top is way too wide. So I'm going to start collaring this in to make it more narrow. I'm going to start down here at the base. I'm not going to do, I don't know if I can tilt this. Oh goodness. I'm going to start down here at the bottom. I'm not going to really use much pressure because, again, I want that width. I'm just going to slowly start pressing in. And compress. It's always going to leave the top uneven, and that's okay. And it might wrinkle in a little bit, but I can always smooth that out later. Get rid of some of that. Compress. So you can see that rim's already a little bit thicker from this upper angle. We just keep collaring in. So here in a few moments, this whole thing, as I collar it in, the whole thing's getting thicker. So I'm gonna have to deal with that and do some more pulling. But for right now, I'm just trying to get that shape to narrow in. There we go. So to continue, so it looks like a funnel now, right? So to continue pulling, I'm going to use my needle tool, the handle end. This one's wooden, but the metal one works just fine. Actually, it's a little better because I think it's longer. A narrow paintbrush could work for this, a narrow dowel rod. Basically, anything's going to fit inside of this hole and not catch the side there. Put some more water in there. And I'm going to hold this in my right hand. I have better control with my right hand, so I can use this on the inside. And I'm going to use my left hand on the outside. When I use my left hand on the outside, my pressure is coming from my thumb, and then my fingers back here are just kind of stabilizing. Sometimes when things are this narrow, it gets a little wobbly. And so I'm going to be pushing the handle of this towards my thumb as I pull. And we want to make sure that we have a really nice thin spout. If it's too thick, it's going to be heavy. It's going to look really clunky and just not do a good job, because we're going to end up shaping this. A little bit more off of this. this section in here. Okay. So that's looking better. Got kind of a nice, we want really nice crisp edge up here on the top so that it really cuts the water off. If it gets too flat or blocky, it's just going to make this like glop, glop, glop sort of thing. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to push some more of this out down here to really kind of make that bottom wider. So it's really important that this top is you know, the most narrow point. You know, so I'm going to just collar that in just a little bit more. You know, so what's going to happen is, you know, if we want to go wide to narrow is going to give us the best pressure for a pour. If we go from wide to narrow to wide again, things just aren't going to pour well, and it's going to be really uncomfortable to use. So before I start to shape this, I'm just going to use a rib to try and, you know, there's a lot of water or slip on the surface of this. And I want to have this be really nice and dry on the surface before I shape it so it doesn't stick to my hands. Okay. So the idea of my shape is, maybe here I'll post a good example and a bad example. So to shape this, I'm going to grab the top. You know, this is pretty soft still, so we want to, you know, use gentle hands. But my goal is to kind of make this look like almost like a lowercase r, like my finger's making here, like a lowercase r shape that kind of comes off, rather than oftentimes people want to make like this, almost like a, what would that be? Like a little J kind of spout. That doesn't look very good. So I'm going to just take this top. Let's see, what's a good way? There we go. I'm going to bend it. I'm going to grab kind of the midsection and bend the opposite way. You know, so we have this nice kind of curve shape happening. I'm just going to bend this a little bit more. And it's really important to bend this now while it's really wet, or else it's going to crack. It kind of depends on, you know, how tall of a spout you want, to how extreme some of these curves can be. But this looks pretty good. It's kind of hard to know for sure until it's on there, or at least we can hold it up on there. So I'm going to put this to the side. I'm going to make one more. And so I didn't say this, but so, you know, my teapot body is ready for a spout right now. So it's really important that when you're making spouts, that it's ready to go on. Because you don't want to make this at the same time as your teapot body, because it'll end up drying too much and cracking or having hard times attaching. So I'm going to put this to the side and make another one. I'm going to cut this way down here. You know, this is way too big. But now I can grab it down here, and I'm not going to disform the top. I'm going to put this off to the side. All right, so I'll do one more, a little quicker, maybe a little less talking. cut it off. Forgot to shape it. There we go. So until you make a couple of these or you see me start cutting this apart, it's kind of hard to see how this can be a spout, because right now I don't even know what that looks like.